So, I mean, music is just, I just love your first two books about music. Then you go on to write two books on sort of like information related problems, The Organized Mind on how to deal with cognitive overwhelm, and A Field Guide to Lies, which won many prizes, on how easily truth can be twisted and falsified in today's media culture. Technology is changing everything super fast today, right? And we sometimes have a hard time catching up to it. You just mentioned the sort of the evolutionary mismatch there is between what our genes have evolved us for, so focusing on a few things, being really connected to our immediate environment, and the pressures of our super fast, modern, highly technological environment. And one of those pressures is just the volume of information we're bombarded with daily seems to be just exponentially growing. And not just on the internet. You give the example of how grocery stores went from 9,000 products to 40,000 products, and you can get pretty much everything you need in 100 products, and how the brain consumes energy to make all of these little decisions, even when they're small and trivial, and then it can sort of leave us distracted and depleted and distorted when we've got to make bigger decisions. It seems like we're stuck in this reality, whether we like it or not, with VR and the metaverse and all that stuff on the uptick. We're only going to be more immersed in technology and more bombarded with information as we go, not less. What do you think of this reality for overall? Like, is it good for us? Is it bad for us? And what can we do practically to better cope with it and make better decisions?
Well, I'm probably not in a position to say what's going to happen. I mean, I'm an old white guy, and we're talking now. My students are millennials; they are digital natives. They grew up in a very different world, and when the telephone and the automobile first came out, there were people that didn't like them. And as I wrote in the book, Seneca, the ancient Greek, was petrified that once people started writing things down, the art of conversation would be lost, which was echoed in my own childhood. I was born in the 50s, and most people I knew didn't have a television set until the late 60s. But there was all this talk, well, television's going to rot your mind and people will no longer talk and they won't play musical instruments anymore because they'll just sit like zombies in front of the TV. So change is inevitable. So to pronounce that it's good or bad, I think, is not something I'm qualified to say. But I can tell you the effects that I've observed, because I get a new crop of 18-year-olds every year as students, and in general, this is not to a person. These are just statistical trends. People born in the last 20 years, last 25 years, have shorter attention spans in general, are uninterested in or unable to sit and read a book for half an hour. They're accustomed to constant distractions. Now, not speaking as a neuroscientist, but just as an art lover, I think that's a shame because I don't think that the Police album Ghost in the Machine, just to get back to Sting, or for that matter, Beethoven's Sixth Symphony, could have been written if those writers had cell phones and were checking their Twitter feed every 2 minutes. You need sustained concentration to do many of the things we want to do that are worthwhile. On the other hand, digital natives say that they're able to synthesize information from a wider variety of sources because they're constantly grabbing. So far, though, the brain doesn't really like that, as you alluded to earlier. All this information processing and decision making is tiring. It uses up glucose in the brain, which is in limited supply. And what I recommend to anybody who will listen is that you do try and turn off your communication devices now and then. I have a no email block every morning when I'm writing. Turn off the email, turn off the phone. Now, right now, my father just got out of the hospital, and so I leave the phone on. But the particular brand of phone I have, which I'm not necessarily endorsing, but it has a do not disturb function that's set up so only my mom and dad can get through right now. But normally I don't take calls between 6 in the morning and 10 because I'm writing then. And later on in the day, I'll just turn it off if I'm having, right now. I'm talking to you, Fred. I'm not checking my email and my phone and texts and WhatsApp and Twitter. And, I made a posting on Facebook. Did somebody else like it in the last 5 minutes? I don't think it's polite to do that. And I also don't think it's brain healthy to do it.
I think I'm getting a sense that you are open-minded to a fault. In other words, like, even if you sense that a certain conclusion might be warranted, that you will not completely take it because you try to stay sort of humble at the level of your hypotheses. And I love that because it's true. Maybe digital natives are going to do things just differently, right? Maybe this is just older folks kind of reacting to change. But at the same time, and this is like, I'm going to bring to you an argument that I felt very strongly when I was reading your books. I feel like this is an argument that, and I may be overreading it, I may be overinterpreting your perspective, but it seems like there's certain decisions that simply require a certain amount of bandwidth, like biologically in the brain. We have to be able to sort of sink a little bit deeper into concentration. We have to be able to dedicate sort of mental resources to make certain decisions. And this clutter that we're getting up here, right? Social media and all the notifications and all of this bombardment and all of these different institutions sort of arguing with one another, and we don't know what's true, what's not true. It seems to me that would sort of sap away a lot of the brain resources that we would need to make certain important decisions. Am I overshooting the state of brain science as you've explained it, or am I doing a decent job of bringing an argument that I think follows from a lot of your analysis?
I think you nailed it. What you said, I believe that what you said is the current state of knowledge. I'll circle back to something you said at the beginning of that question about open-mindedness. It is, of course, a cornerstone of science that we don't prove anything. There is no finding that is 100% undoable. The whole point of science is that we have to be open-minded that some new observation may come along that will completely change our understanding of things. That's been the history of science, particularly in the last 100 years of physics. And it'll be the future of science if science progresses. It's not inconceivable 500 years from now, we'll look back on us. People 500 years from now will look back on us and say, how could they believe those crazy things about physics and chemistry and biology? That's nuts. It's always a matter of how sure we are. We have very, very high confidence, but never 100%. And I would say musicians also have that open-mindedness, or more accurately, the really good ones. If you watched the Beatles Get Back series, they're playing around all the time with the approach to the songs. They're speeding them up, they're slowing them down. They'll switch instruments. Lennon will be on the drums. Paul will give up the bass and put Lennon on the bass. I mean, they're open-minded and open to the possibility that the first thing that sounded good to them might not be the best thing. And, I had the great fortune to tour with Victor Wooten across about 20 or 25 gigs. Victor's the 5-time Grammy-winning bass player, solo artist, and also perhaps best known as the bass player for Bela Fleck and the Flecktones. And we never played a song the same way twice. And it was Victor was always encouraging us in a Miles Davis-like way to experiment and just be free and just not assume that what we did before is the best way, or maybe it is But it was only the best way for the Minneapolis crowd, and what's best for the St. Louis crowd is something different.